they can put on a fight to Red Bull, but the way they're going, with a fragile car like that, Red Bull's just going to walk all over them. So just going to hope they get their act together and, build a more reliable engine.
Is it as fragile as that car behind you?
Mate, these things last forever, these ones.
Welcome to the B Team podcast, guys. Welcome, lads. Grab a beverage from the virtual esky. Ash, there's a bottle of water right behind you. Sit back, relax around this metaphorical bonfire. We're going to introduce the crew today. So first up, a man known to frequent the Leagues Club at Wenty, a serious fella who didn't have his first drink until after 20. Hubert J. Saratna making it happen, ladies and gentlemen.
Right. Good to be back, boys.
That wasn't, we're not bullying you, by the way. It's an admirable effort. Ignore Jonathan's laugh. Next up.
He's going to be quiet the whole podcast. Yeah.
Next up, it's Mr. Maharaj, a few weeks away from being a first-time dad. We're probably not going to see him until next year. It's been real, comrade. Neil Maharaj, my friends.
You may not be invited to the first, mate, so I'll probably see you in the second.
Jeez, bro, it's rough.
All good.
All right, next up, the talented lad keeping Australia's supply chain alive. He'll do what you ask of him if there's a spreadsheet to update or a truck to drive. Jonathan Nisi, the world's most underutilized ops manager.
Mate.
That's a joke we're going to keep making until he finds his value.
Okay.
And finally, he's built a bed from scratch with just pallets, a drill, and his hands. A well-groomed man, as you can see, who regularly uses American Crew and Bondi Sands. The well-groomed Ash Samuels, a man of the people. Welcome, bro.
Thank you, man. What an introduction.
He doesn't use Bondi Sands, guys. Just so you know.
Unless they sponsor me. I'm big.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'll take that on.
What's Bondi Sands?
They'll sponsor us, and then they'll talk about it, bro.
Actually, that's a good idea. Let's reach out to them. Just so Neil can
Bondi
Neil,
Sands. What are
you're gonna be a father soon, bro.
Yeah.
Exciting.
Yeah, man. 100%. I think.
What are you most nervous about?
I'm actually not sure. Like, I don't know what I'm most nervous about. I don't know how ready I am. Like, obviously, you just can't be too ready. So I'm at the stage more like I'd rather just get the ball rolling now and just have him here and see what happens from there. I think that's what it is. But really excited. I think it's definitely probably under 10 days now. So it's all very real. It's all very happening. My wife's struggling to walk, and so I'm like, yeah, let's get it done. So really excited just to get him here now. So that's where it is. That's where I'm at.
Nice, bro. Yeah. Jono's got 2 kids. Any tips, Jono?
Yeah, bro. Leave them home with the missus, mate.
Thank you to Jono for his last episode with the BT.
Next podcast. This is a very long podcast. Yeah, it's going for about a whole weekend.
Yeah.
At Jono's place.
So
looking forward.
That's good, man. Very exciting, especially adding to the little B Team crew. Tell you who else is a dad, though. Elon Musk apparently had twins with one of his executives.
I read that.
You guys hear that?
I read that, but I didn't read too much into it. I just read the headline. I'm like, could be another clickbait, and I didn't really care.
Yeah, well, apparently he did. This is actually a segue to the whole Twitter story, but I wanted to raise something. He, on a Twitter thread, basically when it came out the news, he said he's doing his part, right? He's just making jokes about it. But something he raised, he highlighted that fertility rates are going down, which is really surprising. Now, I want to ask you guys a question. There's a fertility rate rating. Apparently 2.1 is the average. So what that means is women give birth to 2.1 children, and these children survive to the age of 15. If they survive to the age of 50, then any woman who has given birth to 2.1 average has replaced herself and her partner. So it's basically replacing a generation, right?
Yeah.
That's the average, 2.1. Guess out of China, USA, Australia, India, Sri Lanka, Fiji, guess who's got the lowest? Guess who the bottom 3 are?
Give that list again. Sorry. US, Australia, China, Fiji.
China, USA, Australia, India, Sri Lanka, Fiji.
I think USA has to be there, doesn't it?
I'd say US.
Mm.
I think Australia could be there as well.
Lowest fertility rate.
Yeah.
But when you say fertility rate, you mean the birth rate or the fertility?
It's on average women that give birth to. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, I'd say US.
Yep, you're right.
Yeah.
So US is joint bottom at 1.7.
Well, are they actually last in all the countries?
Well, they're the lowest in this list.
Okay. Yeah.
So USA and China are the lowest, 1.7, which means their generation's actually declining. Australia's 1.8. Neil and Ash, give yourselves a hand. Fiji 2.7.
Oh my goodness!
Gold medal, go Fiji, go!
I'll contribute that to that number in a couple of days.
Let's just start a Mecca right now, bro.
But you know what's funny as well? The lower the income, apparently, so they did one based on household incomes too. The lower the income, the higher the fertility rate.
Yeah,
isn't that interesting?
I thought it would be the other way around in terms of planning.
No, they don't plan, bro. When you're that successful, you need everything everything's on point, right? So
you're calling people with big families dumb, bro.
So for me, wait, hold on. I reckon the Asian population, I would have thought that's fair, right?
Yeah.
But I go, how many have now they're let's say the Chinese Americans, what's the portion of them then their fertility rates, right? Because there's so many people that all the young ones have actually moved, right?
Yeah.
So you come back and say is that fertility rate based on the original country, or does it go back to the
I think it'll be based.
Yeah.
If they move to America, it'll be part of America's stats.
Yeah.
But it's just interesting.
National.
Yeah.
No, that's interesting. What are some further insights on that? Did they give why, or they just threw out a number and that's it and left it?
Look, I'm going off Elon Musk's post.
Oh, okay.
He
provides his own stats.
Yeah. I got the stats from the World Bank though. So
well,
take that what you want.
Yeah. Demographics are changing, social structures are changing.
Yeah.
Will probably contribute.
That's a topic for another podcast. Let's continue talking about Elon. So his Twitter deal fell through. If you are in his situation, so the issue is about bots. That's what he's obsessed about. He's been asking, I want to know how many bots are part of Twitter. Quick rundown on what he means by that is he reckons there's there's definitely automated bots in Twitter, but he reckons there are unethical automated bots. They reckon, Twitter reckons, they did a review. The CEO put out a post and said they reckon it's less than 5% of Twitter accounts are with bots or use bots or are bots, sorry. Elon reckons it's about 20% all the way up to potentially 90%, which is crazy. So with all that information, what do you do? Do you try and find Twitter at a discounted price, keep negotiating, build your own Twitter, or just pull out altogether?
Did you say 20 to 90? Like 90?
He reckons it's at least 20% of Twitter accounts are bots.
Well, you can renegotiate, but it depends what you put your money up for to get what outcome with Twitter, right? Obviously Twitter's still got the impact in terms of what they want to do, but what's your outcome and what's your play? So I think your first starting point would always be negotiation when you throw out a stat like that. You throw out your fertility stat and you go, well, the bots are going to be increasing at a higher rate than humans if you want to do that.
Fertility rate of bots through the roof.
Use your last 2 Twitter updates to create a negotiation scheme. No, but you start negotiating I think it's going to be a harder play to start a new Twitter and get everyone else on board and, rip apart everything else and move from there. So I don't know.
Yeah.
That's the way I would look at it.
Yeah.
Actually, the one with the whole MBA and element. What would you do, Ashley?
Well, I just did a first aid course 3 days ago, so it's another thing. I take this off topic. I think there's no point of recreating, right? Because he's not after that tech. I think he's after the bots because it's an intelligence form, right? It's like AI. Yeah. And you think about his other platform, which is driving, and if you think do you think he's trying to join the dots everywhere, right? Going if something can automate text and read things, and I've got a car that drives itself, how far can you take this piece of machinery? I think that's super exciting. That's, I reckon, where he's trying to get to.
Yeah.
The company itself doesn't matter. It's just a platform to talk to, and he's got heaps of platforms to talk to. So I'd be interested to see his underlying reason for that. But he's obviously found some gold in there, which he wants to go, oh, yeah, there's some danger and I can save you. So I'd be keen to hear that thought.
Yeah. I'm going to ask you a scenario, Jono. Imagine you have $50 billion at your disposal and you can't go to the pub. That's not part of the scenario. But imagine you have $50 billion at your disposal. You don't know how many of these accounts are bots, but ultimately you want to build a platform, a social platform where everything will operate on it. Commerce, interactions between people, dating, everything. Now, if you don't know how many of these accounts are bots, but you know Twitter is the most popular social network in the world, after Facebook probably, but questionable, and they're asking prices $45 billion, what do you do?
Oh, you can't buy it for 45 billion. I mean, obviously Elon has interest in the platform. He's like highly influential just being a user on it, let alone owning it.
Yeah.
But you also look into his ventures. He's got spaceships going, he's going to the moon, he's doing this, he's doing that. How many things can he actually take on? This might be one of those ones where he goes, you know what, this is a bit too hard. This is going to cost me too much money. I might just let it go.
Yeah. Good call. Is he, Hubert, tanking the deal because markets have dropped?
Yeah, that could be one thing to do, because the share price has dropped quite a bit from when he first proposed the merger takeover. I think when he took over, it was like $50. Now it's like $30-something. So it's come down quite a bit. So even if he has to pay $1 billion sort of fine for breaking the contract, he can just buy Twitter as it is now at that price, and he's still making a gain on that. So yeah, that could be one of the reasons why you do it. But I think it's more. I remember reading into it. It was saying how Twitter didn't hold into their part of the agreement. We're giving the data to Elon, so Elon just doesn't know what Twitter has. So it is sort of you're spending so much money on something you don't understand. Like you can understand his frustration as well.
You don't know. Yeah, you don't know what you're going to monetize, especially with advertising and stuff, because you don't know what the true user base is, and if the interactions you're having are real or not. Another question, Hubert. You're closer to the American landscape. Apparently, the 2016 elections were semi-rigged with the bots and stuff like that. I don't know if you guys have watched The Great Hack. It's a documentary that follows Cambridge Analytica, and they reckon that, I don't know who it was, Russians or whatever, used bots on Twitter and social media to make America more divisive. In saying all of that, very sideways question, but should there be free speech on a platform like Twitter? Yeah,
definitely. No, so free speech should never be compromised. Like, it doesn't matter what, as long as nothing overly hateful, then you should never stop someone saying what's on their mind.
How do you put guidelines on a platform like Twitter for free speech? Because like even what you said, overly hateful, some people might see, you're an idiot as overly hateful. So how would you guys put rules on a platform like Twitter? Or can you?
You can't be too black and white.
Yeah.
You can't. That's the biggest problem. You say free speech, but you'll be one end of the spectrum and then there's another end of the spectrum. You've got to have some sort of regulation, but when it starts coming from one side, then that's too much. You got to have a balanced view, I think. And that's the hardest part. You can't solve for it. You can't solve for it. That's just human nature, right? It's always going to change. You're always going to have the other side of the scale.
We will move on very quickly, but one thing I do want to say is I think Elon's idea was to open source how they monitor, posts on Twitter. So if they make a decision to ban someone, there's a clear algorithm or a clear decision as to why. Whereas at the moment, it's very subjective, right? So if Hubert goes on and says, Para is the best and someone bans him, like that, it's literally a human on the other end. That could just be like, hey, Para.
I thought that'd be a hero.
So good chat about Elon. Obviously, he can do what he wants with $50 billion in the bank. But another issue in the news over this week is obviously a war in Europe. Russia has basically they've been clipped behind the ear around business, and now with sports as well. There's a lot of players that have swapped nations or allegiances just to compete in basically their livelihood, right?
Mm-hmm.
Here's the question to our SG Ball Players player of 2008. Can politics and sports mix?
They definitely mix. They always have and they always will. I mean, you look at the other end of the spectrum, sports stars which go into politics. They build up a platform and a following. Guys like Manny Pacquiao who are doing good things in the Philippines. Arnie. Then on the flip side, you have sportsmen who were, not to say guilty by association, but by nationality, who are now being, I guess, punished for the doings of the motherland. So, I mean, it's a tough one for them. Like you look at the Russian gymnast who wore the Z on his shirt.
Yeah.
At the start of the year, he had his bronze medal stripped. He had to pay it back. He's just showing his support for his country, which is, I assume, if Australia was in the same situation, that's what we'd be doing. So,
yeah,
it's a tough one. But do they mix? Absolutely, they do. Will they? Yes. Who's the winner? Who's the loser? That's the debate, I guess.
Yeah. Ash, should sports people that participate, say the Russians, should they come out and make their stance clear? And I bring up the Russian example very specifically because it's also dangerous if you make your stance clear and that's your home country, right? But there's this expectation that, hey, if you play, you need to make your stance clear to say, is that right or is that wrong?
I have no clear answer on that. I can't answer on that because it's super grey, right? Because if you come and not support your country in a few years' time, there could be a hit on you. Like, I lived in London where people were getting, it was like chemical attacks for old Russian agents, right? Just sitting around and their mouth would be fizzing up. And I was like, people still, it's like chemically attack people years and years later. It's like, you don't know when a hit could be out on you. And the opposite side is then what happens to sports and just country competitiveness. So there's not a clear line for me unless there's protection provided by another country or something, but then that takes away from everything. So there's no clear answer for me.
I don't think sport and politics should mix. Again, there's a same thing with Twitter and free speech. I think there's a line and there's a grey area, but to a certain point where some people are building their livelihoods to exclude them. It's not just the Russian example. You're talking about every kind of thing, right? When you're talking Israel Folau, all this kind of things, like people's opinions, all the political stuff. I don't think that should come into play. I think sport is sport. It's you representing your country, or you kind of, representing or articulating your skill in a certain sport at a global stage. I think that's a whole separate thing based on the current agenda in the world or whatever it is. I don't think some individuals should get impacted by it, or some countries in that sense not being able to play or participate in global tournaments in that sense. But again, very, very grey and depends on the actual topic or whatever it is. But I think if you take a black and white stance, probably politics and sports shouldn't mix. Otherwise, every country has done something wrong at a certain stage. Therefore, why not ban every single one for everything? But it's the flavour of the month, whatever works best at that time, I think. So, at what stage do you say you're banned because I don't like this? But could be acceptable 10 years ago. It could be acceptable in 10 years from now.
Yeah, and who determines that as well?
Yeah, it's who determines that. That's the kind of thing. So, is Russia not allowed to play in every single sport in the whole entire world? No. But some certain ones you do. Again, it's probably a lot of times driven by sponsors too as well. So should certain companies not be allowed to sponsor certain sports because of their affiliated third-party contracts overseas and whatever, all that kind of stuff too. If you keep going down the rabbit hole, like I said, nobody's allowed to play anywhere because everyone's upset about it. Yeah. So,
Ash, you had a point?
I was going to say, how many politicians and sports actually commingle? I can only think of Pacquiao though, like together, because when he was in the office, he was actually boxing as well, right? But there's not many more, because usually it's like a hard stop, like I've retired and then I transition. So with that, I don't have a problem, right? A sports person transitioning, but they should, if they're going to do a weird stance, they have to retire and not compete in a sport. They have to draw the line, and this is their new life. So you can use your prior history to your advantage to win campaigns and elections, but I wouldn't agree on mixing the two together.
David Pocock's another one.
Yeah, but I'm thinking more of the question in terms of current political landscape versus career politics. I'm answering from the current landscape perspective.
Yeah.
Do what you do after sport. You can be like Ash and be, barista and first aid qualified. But I just think, it's where do you draw the line? Like you start looking at Hubert's, you got Puma there, you got Adidas there, you go, okay, well, how many of them have in the past probably exploited overseas? Low market, all this kind of below poverty line kind of staffing and all that kind of stuff too as well. So you go, well, that's not really right. They're exploiting, cheap labor overseas, and kids are working there. Like, what are the health conditions at those factories like? Anyone sponsoring it? Puma's not allowed to be anywhere in the sporting scale. Where do you draw that line? So you take it out, you essentially have the best athletes in the world competing in sport. And that's what that sport's there for. All right.
Very controversial, but I'm sure there's good points on both sides. Another piece of controversy, our boy Nick Kyrgios fell, unfortunately, last night, but man, he's good for the sport. I think anyway, but he's definitely added a different element to. I don't usually watch tennis, but I wouldn't give a rat's ass about Wimbledon, but because he was creating a stir, I was tuning in and watching his highlights and watching him basically annoy everyone. But in saying that, there's traditions in sport, as we know, playing cricket. Is he good or bad for the sport? And do you agree with him breaking tradition with a lot of things he's doing? John, I will revert to you again as a 2008 SG Ball Players player.
Oh, man. I mean, where do you start with him, right? I mean, any publicity is good publicity. You open the paper this morning, there's Nick Kyrgios. You need guys like that. He's a character. He sells it. Everyone talks about it. Is he good or is he bad? Some of the things he does, I don't agree with, like yelling at umpires and giving it to 10-year-old ball boys and things like that. I think that deserves a smack on the ear. But giving it to members in the crowd, I'm sure if I was playing a Wimbledon final and there was someone who was 700 drinks deep with me, I'd feel like giving him a spray too. So, look, I think he's good for the sport. Look, some things like wearing a red hat when you should be wearing white and stuff he does that, I'm sure, for attention and just to create a stir. He may have a purpose behind it. I don't know, but he's definitely a character and people tune in to watch him.
Yeah. But you're the tennis player here. He used to wear whites when he used to play at school and battle at the local park. Tell us about tradition in tennis.
I mean, tradition. I mean, look, certainly in Wimbledon, I think Nick should have stuck to the traditions, like wearing the white and stuff. But I think he's been great for the sport. I think he's brought tennis back alive. Like, as much, I enjoy playing tennis, but I don't watch it much. But because of Nick Kyrgios, I tuned in and started watching a lot more tennis because he's bringing people back to the sport. Does it carry on? Yeah, he does. But that's what I think. That's the entertainment, right? You're watching sports for entertainment. He's providing it, and but at the same time, look, to me, I don't like the fact when people see sports people as role models. Because, growing up, one of my favorite players was Philippoussis, and he was a bit like Kyrgios in his day. I wanted to play like Philippoussis, but I was never going to carry on like him where he did on and off the court. Because in the end, if I did something like that, my dad was going to, he'll make sure I knew about it after the game. And I think that's what it should be. Your role model should be your parents. So you shouldn't be copying these guys on and off the field, but you enjoy it just for entertainment. So that's how I see it.
Yeah, well, everyone, I don't know, not really big on tennis, but everyone celebrated McEnroe and his antics.
Yeah, exactly.
So, as people are good for the sport, but obviously there's the line of respect that some people should have. But anyway, it doesn't matter. I'm not a pro tennis player. He's the one in the Wimbledon final, so he can do what he wants. We watch. Who's going to say shit?
He's obviously controversial, but entertaining. Who else do you reckon is like that at the moment in world sport?
There's a few. I guess you can say like Hamilton in F1 as well. He's a bit like that, sort of pushing the boundaries.
Yeah.
Conor McGregor. Tyson Fury.
Oh yeah, Tyson Fury is a good one actually.
Yeah, I like him.
Yeah,
real controversial.
Yeah, it's actually funny because there's names I'm thinking of, but they all have legit controversy. Like Conor McGregor taking an old man, Chris Gale with his numerous stuff.
But these are personalities of the sport, right? How many how has the sport grown because of these certain personalities?
As
much as a sport may sit there and be like, no, these guys shouldn't be here, but they're also benefiting from it. So keep them on, I say.
Yeah, that's a powerful thing if you can get people to tune into your sport. Like Conor McGregor, like literally the only fight I tune in for is mostly his ones for the UFC because he's entertaining.
And even back in the day with boxing, like someone like Mike Tyson, he's so much off-field incident. You wanted to watch him fight,
Yeah,
and that's what drew people to the TV. So there's controversial guys. Other ones that bring entertainment to the sport.
Yeah, there's also controversy we've had in the cricket field, like Jonathan Nisi underarming a ball during
Mate.
Or Jonathan Nisi's overthrows in the last season. Surely,
definitely.
It's a poor aim.
I think you turned around and threw it the other way, mate. It's like, oh my gosh.
Yep.
Hubert, you're probably the only guy that religiously follows F1. We're at the halfway mark of the season. Red Bull, or Verstappen's leading. I think Red Bull are leading constructors too.
Yeah, they're smashing it.
Every race I watch, Ferrari has some problem with their car. They're leading or they're top 4, top 5, and something happens. Tell me why Ferrari cars are made terribly.
No, I think it's just one of those. I think when it came to the development, I guess they wanted to go for performance at the cost of reliability, and that's what they're sort of showing now. Like the car is quick, but it's just showing weaknesses, during the race, and that might cost them in the end of the season. But we'll see. Like they do have a quick car, they can sort of work on the reliability throughout the season. Then they can put up a fight to Red Bull. But the way they're going, with a fragile car like that, Red Bull's just going to walk all over them. So just got to hope they get their act together and build a more reliable engine.
Is it as fragile as the car behind you?
Mate, these things last forever. These ones.
Is that number plate Gutho?
No, it's GDHO. That's the car.
Oh, okay.
So what's your tip for constructors top 3, Hewitt? Obviously, it'll be interchangeable between Red Bull and Ferrari.
Yeah, I'll say Red Bull, Ferrari will be 1, 2, and then third one, I think Mercedes will come back. So I think Mercedes might even get a few wins towards the end of the season. So they should pick up third. Yeah.
Where would you put your dollar on the multi? When I say dollar, I mean literally the $5 that you put on the multi.
Gamble responsibly.
You can't go past Max Verstappen. I'll put it on Max winning the championship.
Yeah. Wonder what he's paying now, actually.
I've got $15 left on my sports bet here, but you better not be wrong.
All right, so guys.
Can we just call that like Honda engines are more reliable than Ferrari? Is that what we're saying collectively?
I don't know shit about cars, so I'm not getting involved here.
I mean, so Red Bull had was it Renault, right? Back in the day. And they had catastrophic engine failures. Like every single race, you'd see like smoke coming out. They'd lose all sorts of stuff. As soon as they transitioned to Honda engines, they were just like finishing like races, finishing things. And it was just like straight up, just an engine switch.
You can't be too unfair to Renault. Like they won 4 championships with them as well. So
whoa, calm down, you bit.
Did they win a World Series? Relax.
Yeah. Did they win the Major League Baseball though? That's true.
Good one.
Good chat, guys. So what we're going to do from next week is we want to give basically who joins the podcast. It'll actually be good with the same crew, but you guys to come up with one big business idea and you get to talk about it for 30 seconds. And then we all decide if we invest or not. It
Shark Tank.
Gives us 2 things. It helps us to think of an idea. And secondly, it helps us to communicate it concisely. So definitely don't have a few beers and communicate it after that. As I said, 30 seconds, not 300. But one good idea you had, Ash, actually on the chat when you put it up, teaching people to drive manual. I was actually thinking about this, right? You build it off the back of that. It'd be really cool to build like a man academy because there's a lot of life skills that people don't learn nowadays, myself included, that just, maybe the work term isn't man academy. It's something else, and we'll workshop the name later on. But things like changing a tire, changing oil in your car, doing stuff in the garden, whatever it is. There's all these basic skills that it'd be really good to learn. There's actually a YouTube channel. It's a guy that made it, and he made it basically for boys and girls that don't have a father figure in their life. And it's actually really cool because there's a lot of very practical advice on there. But I was thinking, you commercialize that, you build it up as a nice little package subscription of $10, $20 a month, or maybe even cheaper. People are building themselves to become the man of the future. That's not my business idea, by the way. That's Ash's, but something like that, right? It's like you're seeing a problem that, some people might have and solutionizing it for it. You guys all right with that?
Let's do it.
Yeah.
It'd actually be cool if you guys... Yeah, sorry, go Ash.
I was going to say, to Shaz for the last podcast, you still haven't booked in a date, mate. So whenever he listens to this, our next session still hasn't been booked. That's 2 podcasts in a row where Shaz hasn't done it.
Terrible. What excuse does he have defending the country or whatever?
Defending the country, kid on the way.
No excuse here.
It's not committing to this.
It's a B team. Get out of here.
Now it's good, guys. Good chat today. And on the count of 3, we're going to say, I love Elon. Jokes. Good chat, guys. Catch you next week.
See you guys.
See you, lads.
See ya.
Catch up. See you, John. I know you want to go.